All right, so we're going to draw the parts of a wave. And so if you can you'll need a sheet of paper, and then I have 5 different colored pens. So if you have some different colored pens, that would be helpful to make it kind of a little easier to see as we label the different parts of the wave. So I'll be using those different colors to show that. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw the reference point, which is just going to be a straight line across, or as straight as I can get it. Okay. And then I'm going to draw the wave, and I'm going to start the wave down here at the end. Have it just, oops, my paper moved. Here we go. And just have it go like that. Okay, so there's my wave. And now I'm going to label the different parts of it. So we're going to start with this here. So the top of the wave. So this would be the top of the wave here. This is the top of the wave. And that's the top of the wave. So all of those are the tops of the waves, and those are going to be called the crest. So I'm just going to draw a line to come out and then write crest. And that is the crest of the wave. Get the focus of this in a little better. There we go. So that's the crest. We'll we'll define these in just a minute. I just want to go ahead and label it first. So those are the crests. Then we're going to label the bottoms of the waves, which would be down here. Okay. And those are called the troughs. So T-R-O-U-G-H. So that's the trough. So this has 2 troughs because there's 2 different down here, and there's 3 crests because the 3 waves at the top. Okay. Now I'm going to measure or put the distance between the crest and the reference point here, as well as the trough and the reference point here. Same thing here. So all of this space that's between the crest and the reference point, or the trough, which is the bottom of the wave, and the reference point. So I'm just going to draw these in each of these just so you can see that I'm referencing each of these areas here. And so that space in between that is called the amplitude. So I'm going to just draw an arrow here and say amplitude. All right. Then the distance, where I use red, sorry. The distance between the crest and the next crest, or the trough and the next trough, that's called your wavelength. So I'm just going to draw this here to show that I'm talking about the distance between those 2. Same. Same. And that's called the wavelength. All right. So with those, we're going to go through and now we'll define each of the terms. And so you'll want to make sure that you have this labeled like this. And then I'm going to draw again at the end. And I'm going to ask you to label it on the Edpuzzle. So I'll redraw another one and then just point to areas and have you choose the multiple choice options of whether it's the crest, the amplitude, the wavelength, or the trough. So if you want to get a separate sheet of paper, or you could flip this over if you want, I'm going to use a separate sheet because mine is bleeding through, so I want to make sure you can see what I'm writing. But you could also write it down in the corner if you have space to write the definitions for these. So I'm going to start, move this in a little bit, and I'm going to use the same colors that I used for the drawing to try to make it as easy to kind of reference as possible. So the first one is the crest. Is the top of each wave. The top of each wave. And in parentheses, I'm going to say above reference point, which the reference point was just that straight line across the middle. Okay. The next one was the trough, and I used red, so I'm going to switch to red and write for the trough. So the trough is the bottom of each wave, which is below the reference point. So it's below, or it's the bottom. What color did I use for? Okay. So the next one was the amplitude, and that was the green, all the green arrows that I drew. So the amplitude is the distance between the crest and middle, or the reference line. So that line in the middle. So it's the distance between the crest and the middle, or the reference line, and the distance between the trough and the middle line. Okay, so it was the distance from, if you take the crest is up here and you just draw it to that reference point, or also known as the middle line. And the last one I used pink. Okay, and then the last one was wavelength. And the wavelength is the distance between two crests. So it's the distance. So if we want to even draw like a little picture of that, it's this distance between these two crests. And then if you want to draw a picture of this one, here's your reference point. So that distance is that. It's all that distance between those. Okay. So now I'm going to draw the wave again, and you will then label. You'll use the Edpuzzle, like the multiple choice feature, to label these parts. And you can use the drawing that you just drew. So I'm going to just draw it a little smaller up here at the top, or I guess I'll just do it right here in the middle again. So here is the line for your middle line or your reference point. It's not very straight, sorry. And I'm going to draw my wave. So there's my wave. Okay, so I'm just going to number it. So that's number 1. This distance here between the bottom and the top, or the top of the wave and the reference point, that's going to be our number 2. Number 3 is going to be down here. And then number 4, I'm just going to draw between here and here, or between here and here. And there's number 4. So you're going to label that on the Edpuzzle. I'll just put number 1, and then you'll have multiple choice options to pick. Now, you can now go, once you're finished, you can go to Flipgrid, and you can post the picture, or like show me, hold up your picture on the Flipgrid, and show me that you have labeled your wave and that you've labeled it correctly, and also show me that you have the definitions written down. If you show me that your wave is labeled correctly and that your wave definitions are correct, then I will give you bonus points. If your wave is not labeled correctly, you won't get the full bonus points. And if you don't have the definitions, then you won't get the full bonus points. So make sure that your wave is labeled correctly and that you also have written the definition so that you can get the full extra credit.